Uh, Just
Okay, we should be good.
today's meeting, we will talk about the draft and the feedback process that we have employed. And then Kristen and I met yesterday and we'll talk about how to go forward, what kind of feedback process is best. And then we will talk about, after we are done with our work group and our draft, we will need to take it to our larger group on this with the law commission, which we will probably need to repopulate. And then we'll need to think about taking it out to the courts and the practitioners. So we have been working on this for a while, and we are trying to get feedback on the draft we have. It is draft 2 that we're working on. Last time we met, I'm just gonna, Sandy, can you easily make my screen shareable or should I?
Yes, I can do it. Yep, do it right now.
Okay. There's one that has the memo up on it. Okay.
Yeah, you should have screen sharing now.
Okay. All right. Set up. You're able to see the memo. I don't need you to read it. I just want to refresh everybody's recollection. This is the memo circulated before our last meeting. And what I had done was working off the second draft, annotate the first 31 sections of it with different levels of comments. We talked about this last time. And so there are comments that are just informational, comments that I thought that the group needed to make decisions about, and everything was color coded so that if it was just like a small formatting or word choice item, it was in green. If it was a note, informational note, it was in blue, and then yellow and red comments were things that the group might want to think about. I know Sandy circulated a editable version of this, at least on my screen, it was a little difficult to see. You couldn't see these flags and the text was kind of garbled. I don't know if anyone else had that same issue.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Just like I did my best with it. It was a document that I was a little bit worried about regardless. I think if any of the comments would have come through, we could have done it kind of on the back end, but yeah.
So I hope that people, even if there's not an editable version of this, that even if you can't work with the editable version, that you still should have received before our February meeting, this mocked up draft, and hopefully you are able to read the comments on that. However, because that involves a bunch of clicking through comments, I did circulate this memo, and the memo took the red questions, so things that were annotated with red flags, and broke them down to get everybody's responses to the questions there. And Sandy circulated an editable or shareable version of that, and I just want to thank Jim. Jim Nass was able to comment on the questions and give some very thorough feedback that will be very helpful as we refine our draft. I don't think anyone else was able to provide comments at this point. And so in light of that, I just wanted to check for anybody who's here, whether there were any technological issues that we should resolve in order for you to provide feedback. With our Lindsay, I don't know if you got these materials or if you didn't get either of these things, just let me or Sandy know and we'll get them to you. And I know you're just joining us, so you haven't had a chance to provide feedback. And then last time we met, we had 2 of our other members with us, and so those are our Justice of the Peace, Dan Cross from Washington County, and then our municipal court judge, Judge Gill from Lane County. And we are anxious to hear what they think about how things in the draft would play out on the ground in their courts. So we don't have their feedback. Now, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Sandy, can you just stop the sharing? I always have trouble
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Finding. There we go. Okay, so it's not showing now. Okay, great. So we know that it takes a bit of effort to crack all of the derivations of the sections of the bill and to think about whether changes should be made in the bill, and people may not have had time to do that and enter their feedback into the memo. We also know that everyone is just maybe very busy and it just takes time to do this. So Kristen and I spoke yesterday, and what we're thinking is I prepared this memo, let everybody had a chance to give their feedback. We can hold the memo open for feedback for a period of time from here. I can prepare a second memo or add on to this memo questions about the remaining sections of the bill. The memo goes through section 31, and so the remainder of the bill needs to have the questions identified. I can do that. And then that will have questions in it too, and people can respond with their feedback there. Because of the very detailed questions and answers, I think the written feedback is very helpful. And I think once everyone's had a chance to respond to the questions on the memo, that Krista and Jim and I can probably take that information and write up conceptually what we're thinking, what the group is thinking. And then I know that our legislative council reps are very busy and will continue to be very busy through April. So once we're done with our conceptual list of punch list, we can relay that to legislative council once they're out of session, and then we can clean up a draft. And then from there, the draft, and then from that point on, I think the questions that will remain won't be things like the minor issues and drafting that we covered, or the things that are in these questions. There'll be policy issues, and those are the types of issues that this group would always to take to our larger, not drafting group. And that's the group that we're going to have to repopulate, and we would envision taking something back to them. We would circulate a draft to this group in May or June, get final feedback, and then take it to our large reconstituted group. So that's what Kristen and I are thinking. And so a couple of just questions for the folks who are here. I didn't hear anybody saying there's technological issues with it, at least responding to the memo. Is that right? So everybody, if you've got ideas, please do take a look at it. I know it's a bit of a thicket. We are working with statutes across the ORS, but I think we're identifying the questions that we'd really like your answers to. If you can provide it, great. We will keep, so that's that question. Any questions on that approach? This would mean that we would be communicating with this group pretty much by writing. I'd put out the second memo. You would put in your feedback. Jim and Kristen and I would take the feedback, come up with a draft, and then we would take it to legislative council. And then we would send you another copy, request final feedback before we go to the larger group. I just respect people's time. I know it's difficult to talk about these issues orally. We may not be able to focus on as much detail as we need to. So that's the plan. Any questions or thoughts? Yeah. Oh, I think your microphone is off.
Thank you. Question for you. As I read through the draft, which was based upon a draft I did a while back, my original draft tried to preserve as much of the existing statutory wording as I could, under the theory that the fewer changes we make, the better. However, on having read the entire product now, it dawns on me that certain pieces just don't fit, and some of the language is archaic. I think the changes I'm thinking of are not really policy issues. It's just a matter of cleaning up the wording, how should I, what form should I convey those suggested changes to you and to the rest of the group?
Let me just throw out an idea and then I'd like to hear from other folks. But I guess it's an idea in the form of a question. So what do you think about working with a draft and putting annotations in it?
That would be fine.
Or like a paper, a paper edited copy of it, I think is easy to work with.
I think the problem that we've had is that the legislative council software isn't really, it's not annotatable by everyone, is that right? And so maybe just even neatly handwriting something and scanning it or photographing it and sending it to Justice Duncan and me might be just as easy as anything.
I tried to convert it. It just, as you saw, it just didn't convert well. And Jessica, you had warned me of that. I tried.
I have toyed with the idea of just having it all be typed up in Word because that's easier for group editing, but then I don't know.
I mean, that is what I've done with other groups in the past.
Yeah.
Just made it into a Word doc. I could, if it's what we want to do, we can work on it to make it into a copy like that. It's not, it would take some time, but it's not impossible.
That might be the easiest way for everybody.
Okay. It would miss, it would not, just to be clear, if, and I think that Jessica knows this, it would not be formatted correctly at all. It would just be, so I don't want it to add, that would add a ton of extra work to Jessica, but
I
as long as,
think we'll just have to live with that and when, I don't know, just what is the best form?
so that, Jessica.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, we can convert things to Word. It's just like you were saying, Sandy, the formatting is going to look completely different. It's the bold and the light face and the bracketing and the italics won't convert properly.
And that's exactly what happened to me when I did it through Acrobat. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that we generally do it, we convert the software to the PDFs, and then how I've been doing it is just basically how you've been doing is by editing the PDFs and leaving comments on that. If it weren't in the middle of a deadline crunch, I would say I could start working on a Word version that I could then clean up. I'm not able to do that right now. But sometime in April, I probably would be able to.
One other option for me, since it would be a challenge for me my handwriting is terrible, so it would be a challenge to produce a tidy version for you all to read. One other option I've used in the past is to do what I call the legislative style, which is to say at page 2, lines 13 through 15, delete blah, 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 and insert blah, blah, blah. That requires the reader to have 2 different documents in front of them, but at least it's neat and tidy and easy to read.
If it's just converted to a PDF, then we could relatively easily edit it or comment on it in there.
I mean, the version that was sent out, not the
Yeah.
shareable version, what is it, just a PDF? So if you have Acrobat and oh, and I also sent out the version that I made editable. So it is
Yeah.
possible. The problem is I think it's the sharing of it. That's the problem.
It's the sharing. It's the group comments, I think, is the issue. I think one we could do it, and I could help with this piece, is that everyone could comment on their own copy, and then I'd be willing to put those all, I could just add the comments to the section as just one copy and then share that with the group. It's a little time consuming, but that would be a lot cleaner, and I could help with that.
Oh, I'm always in favor of others doing work.
So if the other option is like we can pretty easily share a Word document. But if we were to convert it, then we would need, I mean, it's like the work of putting all the comments into one document or taking the draft, making it a Word document And then that would be where the work would be, and everyone would comment on that. That might be easier, cleaner in the end. But that means, Sandy, you'd have to like reinsert the bolding and all of that. Formatting.
The other problem with working off of a shared document, I guess, is if somebody wants to rewrite a phrase within that document, then only one person can rewrite it, or else it's still going to be a problem.
If it's a truly shared document, what you can do is you can just do it all with multiple comments on the same section. And that has worked in another project. But again, it's just making this into a shared document, which isn't going to add a tremendous amount of additional work to our partners from LC, which just worries me later on. Does that make sense, Krista? You're right. You can't do it. You can't obviously write the same section in different, like in the same text. You would have to do it with comments, just so it would be connected to it by like the way it works in a Word share document. But it would be like on the bubbles on the side to the same thing. But again, it would take. It would just be for discussion's sake, and then we would come up with the final draft.
I do think it's a lot easier to work off of comments rather than the legislative style that Jim was talking about, because it just requires so much comparing of different documents. Although in the end, we may need something like that. I don't know.
Why don't we, well, Sandy says it's kind of your work either at the front end, turning it into a Word, or at the back end, combining separate annotated PDFs, which will.
I really want to make sure Jessica gets a guidance on this, because it's the last, it could add additional work for her, but what I could fairly reasonably do, it would look just totally different, but I could just make it a Word with none of the formatting. So the language would be correct, but the formatting would be completely removed. That I'm pretty confident I could do pretty easily. It would just, honestly, it would just be a copy paste job. I would just do it really carefully, and then I would bold the sections to make it clear. It actually wouldn't take me that long. It's not a gigantic bill, but it would. But then Jessica would have to totally reformat it later. So that's the piece I want to be respectful about.
It's not I wouldn't be able to then take that and put it, like I would have to completely redo it in our software. It just, like I can cut and paste just chunks of text that have no formatting and put those in, but I can't, like I would never be able to just cut and paste the entire thing back in. I mean, the main concern that I have, if all of the formatting is removed, is that I have to read word by word the entire thing to make every change, and it's extraordinarily time consuming. I don't want to give a hard no, because if that's how we have to do it, that's how we have to do it. But I have definitely rejected documents that were provided to my office like that previously, and just said, you need to indicate what changes are being made here. Sorry, go ahead.
There is one other way we've done with other groups, but it's a different type of process, but I will throw it out there, is that everyone would come to it, is that we would set aside a meeting to just go section by section, and then we would do it while Jessica was in the meeting, and you could write it in your format while we're literally doing it. That is a way that we've done in the past as well. It takes more meeting time, but you come prepared with the comments and we have a discussion. We come to a consensus within the group about the language, and then all of the writing is in the hands of LC from the very beginning, which does produce a cleaner copy. But it's just it would be a different method.
I think we may have too many changes to deal with that in this format.
So, Jessica, the best way for us to do it from your perspective is,
I don't hate the idea of just annotated PDFs
okay,
if people feel comfortable doing that.
okay.
Because even if I was able to convert it to the Word document or Sandy was able to. I guess it depends how many commenters we have, but those track changes get really complicated quickly, and it's hard to tell which direction we're going in sometimes. Whereas almost like separate versions might actually be a little bit easier in a way.
Okay. So let's do that. There's 2 ways you can provide your feedback. You can do one, the other, or both. So you have a PDF. We'll make sure everyone has the PDF that you can annotate. You can put your annotations on there. And everyone will have their own copy. You can also just respond to the Word document that has that most important questions and put your comments there. And so we'll have that. So if you don't want to mess with the PDF and you just want to weigh in on the larger questions, just the easiest thing to do will be just to reply, start inserting your answers into the memo. And so we can go forward with that process for the first 31 sections. And then towards the end of April, probably April 21st, I'll make sure we have the second memo up for the second part of the memo up. And we'll let you know that you can provide your feedback on those questions on that part of the memo. And then we'll compile that information and Krista and Jim and I will get together and see what changes we're going to propose. So if that sounds all right going forward, we'll do that. I think the big takeaway from this is that we won't schedule another meeting of the drafting group until we're all the way done with the process I just described. And then actually we probably won't schedule a meeting of this group. We will send you the product and you can take a look and provide feedback on it. But our future meeting will be of our larger group where if there's any policy questions that we need them to weigh in on, it will be with that group that you're all also a part of. And after we have our work product, we're going to need to get the feedback, and Krista's going to talk about some ideas about giving the feedback and about reconstituting our group.
So since it's been such a long time since the large group has met, I have no idea how many of the people sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
So I assume, Sandy, that you still have a list of people that may or may not have any sort of updating involved in it from, I mean, I think we met in 2020 and I don't even know since then when we last met. But that obviously somebody's going to need to go through that list and recontact those people. And I was assuming that maybe once we've got the new director in place, which is supposed to be in July, is that accurate? Or
it's kind of out of my hands at this point. I'm very hopeful. That's the best I can say.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know when exactly our draft will be ready, but I think we're hoping to have it done in the next few months to be ready to present to the larger group. And it would be really helpful to have that group, ready to go at that point, because if we're looking at trying to get a product done before the next legislative session, we don't have very much time. And and in order to present it to the full Oregon Law Commission, I guess it would probably be at our September meeting, and then if we've got something ready to go, then it would probably be at the September meeting, I guess.
Chris, it's a very reasonable task. I'll get that list. I can go through and I can confirm folks, just that they remain interested, and let them know that while there's no meeting scheduled, just to let them to be on a list for that invitation.
Okay.
And then I'll share that list with the chairs. And then we can also, if there's any suggestions we want to add, that would also be helpful at that point. But that's a very reasonable task that in the next several weeks I can work on.
Okay, great. That would be really helpful. And then I know from my notes that there were some other people that we needed to add to that group.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have any, if anything's been done on that, but my notes indicated that in our, maybe our first meeting, we had quite a list of people that were recommended, which was non-attorneys doing FED claims, legal aid, landlords associations, Oregon Law Center, tenants associations, trial court administrators, collection agencies associations, circuit court judges hearing appeals, police officers who are involved in prosecutions, and code enforcement officers. So I don't know if we need all of those people to be in the group, or if that's, more people that we need to reach out to later. And then later we talked about east of the mountains representation from justice and municipal courts, attorneys, and circuit court representation. So quite a list that I have that we had been intending to follow up on. And so do you have any?
There was some work done, but again, then we kind of shifted to the drafting group model. So it just, that group's been left alone for quite a while. I have the same list you have written down.
Okay.
I do have that in those notes. And we had sort of, because that was based off kind of a brainstorming session from my memory, where we came up with that larger list. I think that it's a good time to go, now it's been a while, to go back to that larger group of who were members then, see who wants to stay, and then also provides us time for a fresh start to reach out to the organizations that represent the most critical pieces and hopefully find representations now, representatives at this point.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So I guess the question is, are you able to commit any time to doing that?
Some, again, and I'm in a tough spot because and I've been really frank about this. This law commission is currently at 5% of my job. I'm right now, I'm also trying to get a very large bill through from now in the next couple of months, which we're working on. But I do care about this group. This group's been really committed for a long time. So I'm not planning on leaving you all hanging. I can certainly do the work of reconnecting with the list of people I have to see if we get confirmed. I think the harder part for me, just because I don't have a lot of connections in this area, would be to get to work on figuring out who would be the best additions. That is a piece I would request some help with.
So I wonder, well, first of all, if this group has any specific names or contact people, that would be really helpful to have those sent to us to follow up on. And then also, I suppose, Sandy, if you're reaching out to the old group, if we have this list of, types of people we're looking for, and ask if anybody's got any names or suggestions.
That sounds like a good idea, and I can certainly do that. And I can put categories in those requests. And some of the folks who were participating before they definitely had those connections.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to work on the circuit court judges and trial court administrators, and if that would be helpful for this group to recruit some interested folks to review when we get to that stage.
Lindsay, that's a perfect example of the people I don't have the connections with. That would be phenomenal and would be appreciated.
And I think particularly making sure that there's a wide geographic representation.
A lot of our justice courts there are more justice courts in more rural areas as populated areas. And so their appeals are going to go to their circuit courts. And so if we had people who are in both those justice courts and their feeders circuit court, that would be good. And I know on the list before, Sandy, there were the associations of the justice of the peace, and I think organizations like
and I know Dan Cross had offered to help with that group, and I'll get back in touch with him there. I don't know if that had been done, but he's talked about it. I know he's well connected with that group.
We'll definitely need people who can speak for an organization like counties and an organization of the cities or municipalities.
Yeah.
Just anything else on that? Just great.
That seems like a really good start. And I guess, I think what we talked about, Justice Duncan, was trying to reconstitute the full group in July-ish.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so it would be great if the work could be started to find those people again.
No, that takes a good charge. That's a charge that I can take. The folks that I've had the contact with, they'll know who I am. To get that list, I can start working on that soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all that we had for today. Just one last thing is if you really welcome all your feedback, and if you have any trouble with the format for providing feedback, let me, Krista, or Sandy know. We don't want any technological issues to interfere with their ability to let us know what you're thinking of the bill.
Justice Duncan, I have two matters I'd like to raise. First of all, in the course of this most recent round of work, it became apparent to me that part of what really complicates the system is justice and municipal courts having jurisdiction of misdemeanors, apparently including misdemeanors adopted by cities and counties. It wasn't clear to me that they have the authority to do so, or even if they have the authority to do so, whether they have ever done so. I was wondering whether, if you have the assistance of Morgan for a little while, if we could track down at least what is the statutory authority for cities and counties or any of these other special districts to adopt either something called a misdemeanor or something that has a penalty of up to a year in jail, which would amount to it being a misdemeanor.
Okay. Yep, we can research that.
The second one is, this is something that dawned on me, and I think we talked about it several meetings back. One of the limitations in the original statute authorizing courts of record is that it barred any justice court within 50 miles of the county seat from becoming a court of record. And I don't know if that is the reason why there's not a single justice court of record. Senator Prozansky was the sponsor of that bill, and I'm wondering whether it'd be worthwhile to reach out to him and ask if he feels strongly about retaining that limitation, or whether we could include in this package a proposal to eliminate that restriction.
Okay.
So, Jim, if you wanted to phrase a question for me, I've been working with Senator Brzezinski's office pretty regularly in the last couple of weeks on different issues. So I'm happy to send that over to them. If I would just want to know specifically what the question was, but if you
Sure.
could give me the language, I'll send
Will
that to
do.
them, and I'll make sure it gets Senator Brzezinski as soon as possible.
Okay.
That would be helpful, because the scope of our work right now, what we do affects the vast majority of justice in municipal courts, because there's like less than 10 of them that are courts of record. But if it becomes much easier, if there's this restriction removed, that I think will facilitate the appeal process for many more courts. So, okay. Yeah, so great. So Sandy and Jim, you'll communicate about that, and Jim
Okay.
will let us know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had for today. All right. Not hearing anything else, or seeing any plans. Thank you all for being here. I really look forward to hearing from you on